You have seen it happen. Perhaps you have watched her lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling while her mind races through every conversation she had that day, every text she sent, every glance she received and could not quite decode. Or maybe you have been on the receiving end of it, the sudden withdrawal, the distant look, the question that comes out of nowhere. Do you think I said something wrong? The female mind, when left unchecked, has a remarkable capacity for turning a single moment into an entire universe of doubt. And if you have ever wondered why women seem to overthink more than men, why they replay conversations, second-guess decisions, and spiral into anxiety over things that happened hours or even days ago, you are not alone. The answer is not that women are more emotional or less rational. The answer is rooted in psychology, biology, and a pattern of thinking that has been studied for decades. Psychologist Susan Nolan Hoxhamer spent her career studying this very phenomenon. She found that women, more than men, tend to ruminate in response to stress and sadness. Rumination is not simply thinking about a problem. It is a repetitive, looping pattern of thought that feels like problem-solving but actually operates more like self-surveillance. It is the mind replaying the same scene, reanalyzing the same words, trying to extract certainty from something that may not offer it. And the tragedy is that rumination feels productive in the moment. It feels responsible. If you just think harder about something, you might prevent future missteps. But the cost is quiet and cumulative. Psychologically, it deepens anxiety and shame. Cognitively, it narrows attention, making it harder to see nuance or other possibilities. Physiologically, it keeps the stress response active long after the moment has passed. Recent research has uncovered something even more specific about why this happens. A study published in Science Advances identified a long non-coding RNA called LINC00473 in the medial prefrontal cortex of the brain that affects decision-making in females. This molecule does not interfere with basic decision-making, but it does change how females evaluate sunk costs and regret. In other words, women are biologically wired to be more sensitive to the weight of past investments and missed opportunities. This is why she can spend 30 minutes comparing two almost identical shirts online, finally order one, and then lie awake, wondering if she made the right choice. This is why she can replay a conversation from 3 days ago and wonder if she came across the wrong way. This is why she can feel the weight of a decision long after it has been made. The brain is literally wired to hold on to these moments with greater intensity. Mount Sinai researchers found that women are twice as likely to develop depression than men, and that depression often manifests with different symptoms between the sexes, including alterations in negative rumination on the past. The study revealed that increased LINC00473 levels drove behavioral differences in females by enhancing sensitivity to sunk costs and regret sensitivity related to change-of-mind decisions. This is not a flaw. It is a feature of the female brain that evolved for a reason. Women have historically been the primary caretakers of children and the maintainers of social bonds. Being attuned to subtle shifts in mood, anticipating others' needs, and scanning for potential threats in relationships were essential survival skills. The same perceptiveness that makes women careful friends, responsive leaders, and devoted partners can, without emotional regulation, slide into relentless self-monitoring. What was once a strength becomes a burden. The Stoic philosophers understood this dynamic 2,000 years before modern psychology gave it a name. They recognized that the mind has a tendency to latch onto impressions and build entire narratives around them. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of the most influential Stoic teachers, made a distinction that is crucial for understanding overthinking. He taught that there are things in our control and things not in our control. In our control are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions. Not in our control are our bodies, our possessions, our reputations, and the actions of others. The problem with overthinking is that it is almost always focused on things outside our control. She replays a conversation, trying to control how she was perceived. She second-guesses a decision, trying to control an outcome that has already passed. She worries about what someone thinks of her, trying to control another person's mind. And the more she tries to control what she cannot, the more anxious she becomes. Epictetus put it bluntly, if you want outward things, let your reason go, or you will have neither the one nor the other. You cannot hold on to both your peace of mind and your attachment to external outcomes. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who wrote his meditations as a private journal of self-reflection, faced this same struggle. He was the most powerful man in the world, yet he spent his life wrestling with his own thoughts. He wrote about the importance of distinguishing between a bare impression and the stories we immediately build on top of it. The problem is not the initial impression. The problem is our habit of treating our imagined conclusions as though they were facts. A woman receives a text that is shorter than usual. The bare impression is simply that the text is short. The story she builds on top of it might be, "He is losing interest. I said something wrong. He is pulling away." And then she spirals. Marcus Aurelius would tell her to pause, to recognize that the impression is not the reality, to ask herself whether she has any control over what the other person is thinking or feeling, and if she does not, to let it go. This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about recognizing that your judgment of an event, not the event itself, is what disturbs you. The Stoic philosopher Seneca argued that you need what he called doctrines to combat these patterns, principles that you can return to again and again when your mind starts to spiral. One of the most practical Stoic tools for quieting the overthinking mind is what the ancient Stoics called the discipline of assent. This is the practice of pausing before you agree with an impression, before you accept a thought as true, before you let it take root and grow into anxiety. Seneca recommended a simple breath protocol to interrupt the spiral. When you feel the tension rising, when you notice yourself replaying the same conversation for the 5th time, stop. Take 3 slow, deliberate breaths. This is not a wellness cliché. It is a direct intervention into the nervous system. It tells your body that the threat has passed and it is safe to stand down. From that place of calm, you can ask yourself 2 questions. What does the bare impression actually say? Is there an action available to me right now? If there is, take it. If there is not, you are rehearsing rather than reasoning. And rehearsing is not thinking. It is a failure of assent disguised as diligence. Another powerful Stoic practice is what the ancient philosophers called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This is the practice of visualizing the worst that could happen. It sounds pessimistic, but it is actually a tool for gaining perspective. When a woman is overthinking, she is often imagining worst-case scenarios without realizing it. Her mind is already running through every possible disaster. The Stoic practice makes this explicit. You sit with the worst-case scenario. You ask yourself, what would I do if this actually happened? And you realize that you would survive. You would adapt. You would find a way forward. The fear loses its power when you look at it directly. This is not about becoming numb to fear. It is about recognizing that your capacity to handle difficulty is greater than you think. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The overthinking mind is constantly projecting into the future, trying to predict and control outcomes that are inherently uncertain. The Stoic response is to bring your attention back to the present moment, to focus on what you can do right now, to let go of what you cannot. There is also a subtle but important difference between how men and women ruminate. Research shows that female depression-related rumination is often brooding, while male rumination is more reflective. Brooding is passive. It is dwelling on negative feelings without any movement toward resolution. Reflection, on the other hand, is more analytical. It is trying to understand why something happened. The distinction matters because brooding is more likely to lead to depression and anxiety. Women are not just overthinking more. They are overthinking in a way that is more likely to trap them in a loop. This is why the Stoic distinction between what you can control and what you cannot is so crucial. Brooding is almost always focused on things outside your control. Reflecting on what you can learn from a situation, what you can do differently next time, that is within your control. Brooding on whether someone likes you, whether you made a mistake, whether you are good enough, that is outside your control. The Stoic practice of focusing only on what you can control breaks the brooding loop. There is another layer to this that is often overlooked. Women tend to be more hypervigilant to the emotions of others in order to maintain positive social ties. This is not a weakness. It is a strength that has been shaped by thousands of years of evolution. but it also means that women are more likely to ruminate when their social partners are stressed. She is not just worrying about herself. She is worrying about everyone around her. She is scanning for shifts in tone, anticipating others' needs, tracking the emotional state of the room. And when she perceives a threat to a relationship, her mind locks onto it. The Stoic response is not to become indifferent to others. It is to recognize that you cannot control other people's emotions. You can be present, you can be supportive, you can be kind, but you cannot make someone feel something they do not feel, and you cannot take responsibility for someone else's internal state. Epictetus taught that you should not be disturbed by what others think of you, because that is not in your control. The only thing in your control is your own character, your own actions, your own responses. The modern world has made this problem worse. Social media, constant connectivity, and the pressure to present a curated version of yourself to the world have amplified the tendency to overthink. Every post can be analyzed. Every message can be dissected. Every interaction can be replayed and second-guessed. The Stoic response is to step back from the noise, to recognize that most of what you are worrying about does not actually matter. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you should not waste your time on things that do not matter, and most of what we overthink falls into that category. The text that was left on read, the comment that was not acknowledged, the slight shift in tone that might mean nothing. These are not things that matter in the grand scheme of your life. They are distractions, and the overthinking mind is a master of distraction. It pulls you away from what is real and important and into a labyrinth of imagined scenarios. One of the most effective ways to break the overthinking loop is to develop a practice of daily reflection. The Stoics called this Stoic reflection. It is a type of daily journaling where you look both forwards and backwards upon your day, reflecting on what is practically achievable, how you may approach setbacks and the highs and lows of the day. This is not rumination. It is structured, purposeful thinking. You are not replaying the same scene over and over. You are extracting lessons. You are identifying what you can learn and what you can let go. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations as this kind of practice. He was not writing for an audience. He was writing to clarify his own thoughts, to remind himself of what mattered, to hold himself accountable to his own values. A woman who is prone to overthinking can benefit enormously from this practice. Instead of letting her thoughts spin endlessly in her head, she can put them on paper. She can see them clearly. She can distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. She can identify what is in her control and what is not. And she can choose to let go of what she cannot change. There is a deeper philosophical point here that is worth considering. The Stoics believed that the purpose of life is to live in accordance with reason. And reason requires clarity. It requires the ability to distinguish between what is true and what is merely imagined. The overthinking mind is a mind that has lost that distinction. It has confused its own projections with reality. It has treated its fears as facts. The Stoic path is to reclaim that clarity, to see things as they are, not as you fear they might be. Epictetus wrote that you should not be upset by what you do not have, but rejoice in what you do. The overthinking mind is always focused on what is missing, what might go wrong, what could have been different. The Stoic mind is focused on what is present, what is good, what is within reach. This shift in attention is not easy. It requires practice. But it is possible. If you are a man who wants to help a woman who is struggling with overthinking, the Stoic approach is not to fix her or to dismiss her concerns. It is to be present, to listen without judgment, to help her distinguish between what she can control and what she cannot, to remind her that she has survived every difficult moment she has ever faced, that she is stronger than she thinks, that the stories her mind is telling her are not always true. The philosopher Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And this is the heart of the problem. The overthinking mind is suffering from an imagined reality. It is treating possibilities as certainties. It is living in a future that may never come. The Stoic response is to return to the present, to recognize that the only moment you truly have is this one. And in this moment, you are okay. You are breathing. You are alive. You are capable of handling whatever comes next. The ancient Stoics also taught the importance of what they called prosoche, or attention. This is the practice of being fully present in each moment, of not letting your mind wander into the past or the future, of focusing your attention on what you are doing right now. This is the opposite of overthinking. Overthinking is the mind running wild, untethered from the present moment. Attention is the mind anchored, steady, clear. A woman who practices attention is less likely to spiral. She is more likely to notice when her mind is starting to race and to gently bring it back. She is more likely to recognize that the thought is just a thought, not a fact. She is more likely to respond to life rather than react to her own projections. The psychologist and author Donald Robertson combines Stoic philosophy with modern psychology to make these practices accessible. He emphasizes that the simple act of pausing can make a significant difference in managing emotions. And that pause is the beginning of freedom from overthinking. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate thinking. The goal is to eliminate the kind of thinking that imprisons you, the kind that loops endlessly without resolution, the kind that treats every worry as an emergency. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus wrote that it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And the reaction to an overthinking mind is not more thinking, it is a shift in attention, a return to what is real, a recognition that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them, and you have the power to choose which ones to follow and which ones to let go. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If a woman's thoughts are colored by fear and doubt, her soul reflects that. But if her thoughts are colored by clarity and acceptance, her soul reflects that too. The choice is hers. And the Stoic path offers her the tools to make that choice. Not by suppressing her emotions, but by understanding them. Not by ignoring her fears, but by facing them. Not by trying to control the uncontrollable, but by focusing on what she can control. And in that focus, finding peace.